If you close your eyes for a moment, the universe becomes quiet enough to hear. Not silent in the absolute sense, but softened, as if the constant rush of things has finally agreed to slow down. Somewhere beyond the thin shell of Earth's atmosphere, beyond the familiar glow of stars you may have known since childhood, immense structures of light and gravity are moving with a patience so deep that it barely feels like motion at all. Tonight is not about urgency or spectacle. It is about time that stretches, breathes, and waits. Perhaps your mind has carried a heavy weight today, thoughts looping without resolution, worries that seem louder at night, a sense that the future presses gently but persistently against the present. If that is true, you are not alone. Many people feel this quiet tension when the world finally dims and there is nothing left to distract them from time itself. In moments like these, the universe offers a strange kind of comfort, not by shrinking our concerns, but by giving them space to rest. Tonight, we will drift together into a story that sounds dramatic when told quickly, but becomes calming when allowed to unfold at its true pace. The final hour, the moment when Andromeda meets the Milky Way. Words like collision and impact often carry sharp edges, but here they soften. They become descriptions of a process already underway, a slow cosmic dance that began long before human memory and will continue long after our names are forgotten. Nothing in this story is rushed, not even light. It may be tempting to imagine this meeting as a sudden event, a catastrophic instant that splits time into before and after. Yet the universe does not work that way. On its largest scales, change arrives like a tide, not a crash. Galaxies do not slam into one another. They drift, they interweave, they respond to gravity the way oceans respond to the moon. The language of urgency belongs to human lives. The language of the cosmos is patience. As you listen, you might notice your thoughts beginning to slow, mirroring the pace of the story itself. This is natural. The mind, like everything else, responds to scale. When distances become too large to grasp, the part of us that insists on control gently loosens its grip. A light year is not meant to be understood, but felt. Billions of years are not meant to be counted, but sensed, like a long exhale that has been ongoing since before the first star ignited. We are living in a quiet interval of this story. The galaxies are already moving toward one another, already bound by gravity, already committed to a future they cannot avoid. And yet, from where we stand, the night sky feels stable, familiar, almost eternal. This contrast can feel unsettling at first, but it can also be deeply reassuring. Change does not arrive all at once. It arrives so slowly that entire civilizations rise and fall without ever noticing it. As we begin this journey, there is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to hold on to. Simply allow the idea of deep time to widen around you. Imagine two immense luminous forms approaching each other across a darkness so vast it humbles every worry you have ever carried. Imagine a night that lasts for ages, where movement is measured not in seconds, but in epochs. In the quiet of the cosmos, the mind finds space, and within that space, there is room for rest. There is a strange comfort in realizing that some of the most important events in the universe do not announce themselves. They do not arrive with noise or urgency. They begin quietly, almost invisibly, unfolding across stretches of time so vast that the human nervous system simply cannot register them as threats. The meeting between the Milky Way and Andromeda is one of these events. It has already begun, even though nothing in the night sky seems to suggest it. This realization can feel unsettling at first, but when allowed to settle gently, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes calming. Many people carry a quiet anxiety about the future, a sense that something immense is approaching, something beyond control. This feeling often has no clear object. It lives in the background, a low hum beneath daily routines. The idea of a galactic collision can seem to confirm this fear, as if the universe itself were unstable, unpredictable, leaning toward catastrophe. Yet this interpretation belongs to human timescales, not cosmic ones. The universe is not rushing toward disaster. It is moving exactly as it always has, with patience so deep it feels like stillness. When we hear the word collision, the mind tends to picture speed and impact. Two objects racing toward each other, a violent moment of contact, destruction following immediately after. This image is shaped by everyday experience: cars on roads, storms hitting coastlines, arguments escalating into sudden breaks. But galaxies do not behave like solid objects. They are more like vast clouds of light and gravity, so diffuse that even when they pass through one another, direct encounters are rare. The language we use can mislead us, turning a slow, graceful process into something sharp and alarming. The Milky Way and Andromeda are already bound together by gravity. They are part of the same cosmic neighborhood, the same long story. For millions of years they have been subtly adjusting their paths, responding to each other's presence across a distance of more than 2 million light-years. That distance sounds enormous, and it is, but gravity is patient. It does not need urgency. It works quietly, continuously, shaping futures without ever raising its voice. As you imagine this slow approach, it may help to let go of the idea of a single moment when everything changes. There is no cosmic clock ticking down to an explosion. Instead, there is a gradual deepening of influence, a mutual awareness growing stronger over time. The galaxies are not charging toward each other. They are drifting, like two immense tides drawn together by forces older than stars themselves. This is not a story of impact, but of convergence. Time behaves differently at this scale. Billions of years are not an abstract number here. They are the medium through which change occurs. For human beings, a year can feel long, a decade can feel overwhelming. But in the life of a galaxy, a billion years is a gentle adjustment, a slight shift in posture. When we place our worries inside this context, something begins to soften. The urgency that dominates daily life starts to dissolve, not because our concerns are invalid, but because they are no longer alone. There is a quiet relief in knowing that the future is not racing toward us. It is unfolding at a pace so slow that no living human will ever experience its climax. Entire civilizations will rise, create meaning, struggle, and fade, all while this galactic meeting continues almost imperceptibly. This does not make our lives insignificant. It makes them rare. We exist in a narrow, precious interval, aware enough to imagine the future, yet free from its heaviest transformations. Anxiety often comes from the feeling of powerlessness, from the sense that time is dragging us toward outcomes we cannot influence. The story of Andromeda and the Milky Way reframes this feeling. It reminds us that some processes are not meant to be managed or feared. They are simply meant to exist. The universe does not ask for our permission to change, but it also does not rush us through that change. It moves with a gentleness that can be felt if we allow ourselves to slow down alongside it. Imagine standing on a shoreline at night, watching two distant tides slowly rise toward each other across a vast, dark ocean. There is no moment when you can say the meeting has truly begun, and no clear instant when it is complete. The water shifts, responds, adjusts. The night stretches on. This is how galaxies meet, not with a crash, but with a long, patient embrace that takes place over ages rather than moments. The idea that this encounter is already underway can feel strange. How can something so significant be happening without any visible sign? Yet this is often how the most important changes occur, both in the universe and within ourselves. Growth rarely announces itself. Healing often begins long before we notice its effects. The cosmos reflects this truth back to us, offering a mirror in which slowness is not a flaw, but a feature. As the Milky Way and Andromeda continue their approach, the stars within them remain largely undisturbed for a very long time. The vast distances between stars act as a kind of protection, ensuring that even during the closest phases of interaction, direct collisions are extraordinarily unlikely. This fact alone challenges the instinct to associate change with destruction. In the universe, transformation often happens without violence, through subtle shifts in balance rather than dramatic breaks. You might notice, as you sit with this idea, that your breath feels a little deeper, your thoughts a little less urgent. This is not something you need to force. It is a natural response to scale. When the mind encounters something too large to control, it sometimes chooses to rest instead. In the presence of billions of years, the pressure to solve everything tonight begins to fade. The galaxies are teaching us something quietly. They are showing us that movement does not require haste, and that inevitability does not have to feel threatening. Their meeting is certain, but it is also gentle. It is written into the structure of the universe, not as a disaster, but as a continuation. Matter rearranging itself, gravity expressing its long-held intentions, light finding new paths through changing sky. We often fear the future because we imagine it arriving suddenly, demanding immediate adaptation. The cosmic perspective offers a different vision. Here, the future approaches slowly enough to be almost kind. It gives space for acceptance, for meaning, for rest. It reminds us that not everything that matters happens within the span of a single life, and that this is not a loss, but a form of freedom. As this chapter settles, allow the image of those two galactic tides to remain with you. They are moving, yes, but they are not rushing. They have all the time they need, and in that vast, unhurried motion, there is an invitation to release the grip of urgency, to trust that some things unfold best when left to their own deep rhythms. The universe slows down for those who listen. And tonight, there is nothing else you need to do but listen. There is a quiet relationship many people have with the night sky, even if they rarely speak of it. It is the familiarity of certain stars, the comfort of patterns that seem unchanged across a lifetime. Orion rising in winter, the soft arc of the Milky Way on a clear summer night, constellations learned once and then never questioned again. These shapes feel stable, dependable, almost permanent, and because they have been there for as long as we can remember, it is easy to believe they will always remain the same. Yet nothing in the universe is fixed in the way our minds would prefer. The sky, too, is in motion. It always has been. The stars are not pinned to a celestial dome. They are travelers, each following its own long path through space and time. We simply live during an interval when their movements are too slow for our eyes to notice. This illusion of stillness can feel reassuring, but it can also quietly anchor us to the idea that what is familiar must be eternal. The approach of Andromeda will not announce itself with a sudden transformation of the heavens. There will be no single night when the sky looks entirely different. Instead, the change will be gradual, almost tender. Over millions of years, the distant smudge of Andromeda will grow brighter and larger, stretching across more of the sky. Stars will subtly shift their positions. New patterns will begin to form, not replacing the old ones all at once, but gently overlapping them, like new memories layering themselves over old ones. This kind of change can stir a deep, often unspoken fear. The fear of losing what feels known, the fear that once something familiar shifts, it can never be reclaimed. Humans are pattern makers by nature. We find safety in repetition, meaning in shapes we can recognize. When those shapes begin to dissolve, even slowly, it can feel like a small kind of grief. The sky, after all, has been a witness to every stage of human history. To imagine it changing is to imagine ourselves untethered from something ancient and reliable. But constellations were never permanent to begin with. They are not objects in space, but perspectives. They exist only because of where we stand and when we are alive. The stars that form a constellation may be separated by hundreds or thousands of light years, connected only by lines drawn in the human imagination. Over long enough periods, these alignments unravel. Stars drift apart, new shapes emerge. The stories we told about the sky evolve just as we do. There is a quiet relief hidden in this realization. If the patterns above us are temporary, then so is the pressure to preserve them exactly as they are. Change does not erase meaning, it transforms it. The sky of the future will still be a sky, still capable of wonder, still vast enough to hold our questions. It will simply tell different stories, shaped by a different arrangement of light. As Andromeda draws closer, the night sky will slowly take on a richer texture. Where there was once emptiness, there will be faint glows. Where there were simple patterns, there will be complexity. The heavens will not become chaotic, they will become layered. Old constellations may fade, but new ones will take their place, even if no human is there to name them. The universe does not mourn the loss of one pattern when it gives rise to another. It continues, unburdened by nostalgia. This can offer us a gentle lesson. Much of our anxiety around change comes from the belief that familiarity is the same as safety. But familiarity can also become a cage, holding us in place even when growth is possible. The cosmos reminds us that movement does not have to be threatening. A sky that changes is not a sky that has failed. It is a sky that is alive. Imagine the night sky as a face seen over many decades. At first it looks the same, year after year. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, it begins to change. Lines deepen, expressions soften. And yet, the essence remains recognizable. The eyes still hold the same quiet depth. The presence is still comforting. Aging does not erase identity, it reveals it. In the same way, the changing sky will still be the sky. Different, yes, but continuous. There is something deeply human in our attachment to what feels permanent. We seek anchors in a world that moves constantly beneath our feet. The stars have served as one of those anchors for thousands of years. They guided travelers, inspired myths, offered a sense of order in the vastness. To learn that even they are temporary can feel destabilizing. But it can also be liberating. If even the stars are allowed to change, perhaps we can be too. The transformation of the sky will not demand adaptation from any single person. It will unfold across spans of time so long that no one will be forced to say goodbye to the constellations they love. Each generation will inherit a sky that feels normal to them, just as we have. This slow pace is an act of cosmic kindness. Change arrives gently enough that it does not overwhelm. As you imagine this future sky, you might notice a softening within yourself. The fear of change often tightens the body, narrows the breath. But when change is framed as gradual, as patient, the mind begins to relax. The universe does not rush us from one form to another. It gives us time to adjust, to grieve, to find new meaning. The sky has always been a mirror for human emotion. We project our fears and hopes onto it, finding reflections of ourselves in its vastness. When the sky changes, it invites us to reconsider our relationship with impermanence, not as a loss to be resisted, but as a reality to be gently accepted. Nothing we love is frozen in time, and yet nothing truly disappears. It changes shape, changes context, becomes part of a larger story. As this chapter drifts towards stillness, allow yourself to imagine a future night where the stars are unfamiliar, yet beautiful. A sky that no one alive today will ever see, but which will exist because the universe continues to move, continues to breathe. In that imagined future, the sense of wonder remains. The feeling of looking up, of being small beneath something immense remains. The comfort of knowing you are part of a larger unfolding remains. Perhaps the sky does not change to take something away from us. Perhaps it changes to remind us that life, like the universe, is not meant to stay still. And in that motion, slow and patient, there is room for acceptance, for release, and for a quieter kind of peace. There is a deep reflex in the human mind that equates change with harm. When something moves, collides, or transforms, we instinctively brace for loss. This instinct has kept our species alive for a very long time. It sharpens our senses, prepares our bodies, urges us to protect what we value. But when this reflex is carried into the scale of the cosmos, it can distort what is actually happening. The word collision sounds violent, abrupt, unforgiving. Yet in the universe, violence does not always look the way we expect it to. When we imagine galaxies colliding, many people picture blazing impacts, stars smashing into one another, worlds torn apart in moments of chaos. This image is powerful, but it is also deeply misleading. Galaxies are not solid objects. They are mostly empty space, vast regions, where stars are separated by distances so immense that even during a galactic encounter, direct contact is extraordinarily rare. What appears violent in language is, in reality, one of the most delicate interactions the universe allows. This misunderstanding often mirrors something internal. Many people fear emotional change in the same way they fear cosmic change. They imagine that if something shifts, it must break. If a familiar structure dissolves, it must do so painfully. Yet just as galaxies pass through one another without shattering their stars, human lives can pass through periods of transformation without being destroyed by them. The universe offers this parallel not as instruction, but as quiet reassurance. The space between stars is not a void of nothingness. It is a protective distance, a buffer that allows motion without catastrophe. Even when two galaxies interpenetrate, their stars glide past each other like distant ships in a fog, aware only through gravity that something else is there. This vast spacing is one of the great safeguards of cosmic life. It ensures that change can occur without annihilation, that transformation can be gradual, distributed, and survivable. Gravity, not impact, is the true language of galactic encounters. It works invisibly, patiently, reshaping orbits over millions of years. Stars are gently pulled into new paths. Gas clouds are compressed, stretched, and stirred. Nothing explodes all at once. Instead, the galaxies slowly teach each other new ways to move. This is not violence as humans know it. It is negotiation written in the fabric of space-time. There is something profoundly calming about this realization. The universe does not rely on destruction to create novelty. It relies on relationship. When Andromeda and the Milky Way begin to overlap more deeply, their gravitational fields will intertwine, redistributing matter rather than erasing it. What changes is not existence itself, but arrangement. The same atoms, the same stars, the same ancient light simply find themselves in new contexts. Ironically, these encounters can become sites of creation rather than loss. As gas clouds are gently compressed by shifting gravitational forces, new stars may ignite. Regions that were once quiet can awaken with slow, luminous birth. In this way, a process that sounds destructive becomes generative. The universe does not waste motion. It turns interaction into opportunity. This idea can feel counterintuitive because human experience often teaches the opposite. In our lives, collisions tend to hurt. Conflicts leave scars. Sudden changes disrupt stability. But the cosmos operates under different rules, at scales where patience outweighs urgency. By observing these processes, we are not minimizing human pain. We are placing it within a broader context, where not all change is synonymous with damage. Imagine two immense forests made of mist, drifting toward one another in a silent night. Their trees do not snap, their branches do not shatter. The fogs intermingle, passing through each other, creating new patterns of density and light. From a distance, it might look dramatic, even alarming. But within the mist, there is only gentle movement, soft rearrangement. This is what a galactic encounter truly resembles. The fear of violence often comes from uncertainty. We fear what we cannot predict, what we cannot control. The word collision suggests loss of control, a surrender to chaos. But in the universe, even collisions are governed by laws that have been steady for billions of years. Gravity does not panic, matter does not rush. Everything unfolds within a framework of balance that has held since the first stars formed. As you sit with this idea, you may notice how often your own fears rely on imagined catastrophes rather than lived realities. The mind jumps ahead, filling unknown futures with the worst possible outcomes. The cosmos gently challenges this habit. It shows us that even the most dramatic-sounding events can unfold with grace, subtlety, and care, that not all encounters are harmful, that not all change is violent. There is also comfort in knowing that life itself has survived countless cosmic interactions. Our galaxy has merged with smaller galaxies before. It carries the quiet evidence of these ancient meetings in the motions of its stars, in streams of light that arc through its halo. Life arose not in spite of this history, but alongside it. The universe has always been dynamic, and yet here we are, conscious enough to reflect on it. The phrase "the drama is gravitational, not explosive," carries a quiet wisdom. It reminds us that the most powerful forces are often the least visible. Gravity does not shout. It whispers, persistently, shaping destinies over timescales too long to intimidate us. In this whispering force there is no cruelty, only consistency. Human culture often glorifies sudden transformation. We tell stories of instant change, dramatic endings, sharp turning points. But the universe prefers continuity. It prefers slow evolution, subtle adjustment, long transitions. By aligning our expectations with this rhythm, we may find relief from the constant anticipation of disaster that fuels so much modern anxiety. As the Milky Way and Andromeda continue their slow interweaving, most stars will remain entirely unaware of the encounter. Their nights will look much the same for millions of years. Planets will continue their steady orbits. Light will continue its long journeys. Change will be happening, yes, but it will be happening quietly, distributed across vastness rather than concentrated into moments of shock. This perspective invites a gentler relationship with uncertainty. Not everything unknown is dangerous. Not every future is waiting to harm us. Some futures are simply different arrangements of what already exists. The universe models this patience endlessly, asking nothing of us except that we observe and perhaps learn to soften. If you notice tension in your body as you listen, imagine it loosening in the same way stars keep their distance even during a galactic encounter. Space creates safety. Time creates gentleness. There is room to move without breaking. There is room to change without being erased. The universe does not deny that transformation can be intense, but it shows us that intensity does not have to mean destruction. It can mean depth. It can mean complexity. It can mean the quiet birth of something new, emerging not from chaos, but from slow, inevitable interaction. As this chapter draws toward its own stillness, allow the image of those misty forests to linger, two vast presences passing through one another, altered but intact, changed but not destroyed. In that image, there is an invitation to reconsider the stories we tell ourselves about change. Perhaps violence is not always what it seems. Perhaps the universe is far gentler than our fears suggest. And in that gentleness, there is space to rest. There is a particular kind of weight that comes from feeling small. Not the gentle smallness that brings humility, but the heavy version, where one's own life feels easily erased by the scale of everything else. Many people carry this feeling quietly. It emerges late at night, when personal worries collide with the vastness of time, when individual effort seems fragile against forces that feel impossibly large. In moments like these, the future can appear not as a place of possibility, but as a reminder of how little control we seem to have. And yet, the future described by the slow meeting of galaxies offers an unexpected reversal of this feeling. It suggests that smallness does not automatically mean insignificance. In fact, it may be precisely because our lives unfold within such a narrow window of cosmic time that they carry a unique kind of value. We exist not at the beginning of everything, nor at its end, but in a rare interval between enormous transformations. That position matters. The collision between Andromeda and the Milky Way will happen so far in the future that no human language has a natural way to hold it. Entire species will appear and disappear. Mountains will rise and erode into dust. Oceans will open and close. And still, the galaxies will continue their slow approach. Knowing this can feel unsettling at first, as if our lives are mere footnotes in a much larger story. But with time, this realization often softens into something else, a sense that being here now is not trivial but extraordinary. There is a paradox at the heart of cosmic perspective. When we place ourselves against billions of years, our individual problems shrink. Yet our brief moment of awareness becomes more precious, not less. We are conscious during a calm chapter of the universe's story. We can look up, reflect, imagine futures we will never see. That ability itself is rare. The universe does not require witnesses, but for a short while, it has one in us. Many people find that thinking about distant futures they will never experience brings a surprising sense of peace. At first, this seems counterintuitive. Why would contemplating something so far beyond our reach be comforting? But there is relief in knowing that not everything depends on us. The universe will continue whether or not we worry. The galaxies will meet whether or not we understand them. This does not diminish our choices, it frees them from unbearable pressure. The future collision reorganizes the present not by demanding action, but by offering perspective. When you realize that you live before an event that will reshape the night sky itself, daily anxieties lose some of their sharpness. The arguments, deadlines, and fears that consume so much energy begin to feel temporary in a gentler way, not meaningless, but lighter. They belong to a specific moment, not to eternity. This perspective does not ask us to dismiss our struggles. Human pain is real, regardless of scale, but it does invite us to place that pain within a larger container. When worries feel endless, it can help to remember that they exist within a universe that measures change in billions of years. Against that backdrop, even the longest human hardship is finite. Even the deepest fear has edges. There are people who have found solace in this way of thinking during times of personal crisis. Some speak of lying awake at night, overwhelmed by uncertainty, until the thought of deep time entered their awareness. The idea that stars were forming long before their worries existed, and would continue long after those worries faded, brought an unexpected calm, not because it solved their problems, but because it reminded them that their problems were not the whole of reality. The universe offers no judgment about our lives. It does not rank experiences by importance or measure success by longevity. It simply unfolds. In that unfolding, there is room for joy, for grief, for effort, and for rest. When we recognize this, the pressure to be endlessly significant begins to ease. We do not have to leave a permanent mark on the cosmos to have lived meaningfully within it. There is also comfort in knowing that the future will reorganize the universe without erasing its past. When Andromeda and the Milky Way merge, the stars that exist now will not vanish. They will carry their histories with them into new orbits, new configurations. In the same way, our lives carry meaning forward, even if they do not last forever. What we do, feel, and create becomes part of a larger flow, influencing others in ways we may never fully see. The fear of insignificance often stems from comparison. We compare our short lives to the age of the universe and feel overwhelmed. But this comparison overlooks something important. The universe is vast, yes, but it is also indifferent to scale in the way we imagine. A human thought is no less real because it lasts a moment. A feeling is no less valid because it does not echo for billions of years. Reality is made of moments as much as it is made of epochs. As you reflect on this, you may notice a subtle shift in how you hold your own existence. Perhaps there is less urgency to prove something, to justify your place. Perhaps there is more room to simply be present. The future, distant and slow, does not rush toward you demanding preparation. It waits, calmly, while you live your life within the present it has given you. The galaxies remind us that timing is not a competition. We are not late, we are not early, we are exactly where we can be. Our awareness exists during a chapter of cosmic calm, before massive restructuring begins. That calm is not an accident. It is the natural state of a universe that changes slowly enough to support complexity, life, and reflection. When anxiety about the future arises, it often comes from imagining outcomes without context. The mind fills unknown time with imagined threats. Deep time offers a different image. It shows us a future that is vast, yes, but also gentle. A future that unfolds so slowly it does not need to be feared. A future that will reorganize the cosmos without demanding our participation. You may find that this realization brings a quiet gratitude for the present. The sky above you tonight is stable. The stars follow familiar paths. The earth remains a safe harbor within a much larger motion. This stability is not guaranteed forever, but it does not need to be. It exists now, and now is enough. As this chapter continues to settle, allow yourself to rest in the idea that your life is not overshadowed by the future. It is framed by it. The distant meeting of galaxies does not diminish your present moment, it gives it context. It reminds you that you are living during a rare pause, a calm stretch between monumental changes. And within that pause, there is room for meaning, for connection, and for peace. In a universe this vast, being here now is not insignificant. It is precise, it is improbable, it is quietly remarkable. And when seen through the lens of deep time, the present becomes not a small thing lost in eternity, but a brief, luminous interval that matters simply because it exists. There is a particular unease that arises when we think about losing something familiar, even when what replaces it may be richer, larger, or more complex. The mind often resists transformation not because the outcome is necessarily worse, but because it is unknown. This quiet fear of the unfamiliar lives deep within human psychology. It appears whenever identities dissolve, whenever old structures loosen their grip, whenever something recognizable begins to merge into something new. The future galaxy born from the meeting of the Milky Way and Andromeda carries this same emotional weight. It represents not just change, but the creation of something that has never existed before. As these two galaxies continue their slow convergence, they will not simply overlap and pass through each other unchanged. Over immense stretches of time, their mutual gravity will draw them into a shared structure. Their stars, gas, and dark matter will begin to orbit a common center, one that does not exist yet, but is already forming in potential. This center will not be a dramatic explosion or a sudden core of light. It will emerge gradually, quietly, as matter redistributes itself into a new balance. From the outside, this process might look like loss. Two grand spirals, each with its own long history, its own shape and rhythm, will no longer exist in their current forms. The Milky Way, as we know it, will fade into memory. Andromeda, too, will relinquish its identity. This can feel unsettling, even tragic, when framed in human terms. We are attached to names, to forms, to the idea that continuity requires preservation. But the universe does not define continuity that way. What is gained is not nothing. What is gained is a new galaxy, often imagined by astronomers as a large, smooth, elliptical form, carrying within it the combined histories of both parents. Every star that exists now will still exist then, unless it has naturally reached the end of its life. Every atom will still be present, rearranged into new orbits, new relationships. The loss is not of substance, but of structure. And structure, in the universe, is always temporary. This idea mirrors a deeply human experience. We often fear that if something about us changes, we will lose ourselves entirely. That if one chapter ends, the story must be over. But identity, like galaxies, is not a fixed shape. It is an ongoing process. The self you were years ago still exists within you, not as a separate entity, but as part of a larger, evolving whole. In the same way, the Milky Way will not disappear, it will become part of something broader. The center of the new galaxy will be invisible for a long time, not hidden, but undefined. It will emerge slowly as gravity settles into a new equilibrium. This unseen center carries symbolic weight. Humans often seek clear anchors, obvious cores around which to organize meaning. When those centers dissolve, uncertainty grows. Yet the universe shows us that new centers do not need to be declared. They form naturally when enough elements come into relationship with one another. At the heart of both the Milky Way and Andromeda lie massive black holes, ancient objects that have shaped their galaxies for billions of years. As the galaxies merge, these black holes will eventually find each other, spiraling inward over vast timescales. Their eventual union will mark the settling of a new core, a gravitational heart around which the combined galaxy will slowly rotate. This process, too, will be quiet. Even the most extreme events in the universe unfold without sound. The idea of two long histories being rewritten into a single, thicker book can feel both daunting and comforting. Daunting because it suggests that no story remains untouched by change. Comforting because it reminds us that nothing meaningful is erased. The past does not vanish when a new chapter begins. It is carried forward, influencing what comes next in ways that are subtle but enduring. Human beings often struggle with transitions because they are taught to value consistency over growth. We are encouraged to maintain identities, roles, and narratives even when they no longer fit. The cosmos offers a different lesson. It shows us that identity is not something to be protected at all costs, but something that evolves naturally when conditions change. Resistance is not required. Transformation is not a failure. As you imagine this future galaxy, you might notice a quiet shift in how you think about your own unknowns. The fear of what you cannot yet define may soften when seen through this lens. The universe does not rush to define its next form. It allows uncertainty to exist for billions of years, trusting that balance will eventually emerge. There is patience here, a deep confidence in process over outcome. The birth of a new galactic center will not be witnessed by eyes like ours. No human will be there to mark the moment, to name the galaxy, to draw its shape. And yet, it will happen all the same. This is a reminder that meaning does not depend on observation. The universe does not require acknowledgement to continue its work. It unfolds whether or not it is seen. There is a quiet freedom in this realization. Not everything has to be understood, named, or controlled to be real. Some things are allowed to become what they will become, guided by forces older and wiser than intention. When we apply this idea inward, it can bring relief. We do not have to know exactly who we will be in the future for that future to arrive gently. The fear of the unknown often comes from imagining it as empty or hostile. But the unknown at the center of this future galaxy will be rich with stars, light, and motion. It will be full, not void. In the same way, the unknown chapters of our lives are rarely empty. They are simply unwritten, waiting for circumstances to give them shape. As the Milky Way and Andromeda continue their slow union, the new galaxy will carry a memory embedded in its structure. Subtle streams of stars will trace the paths of ancient mergers. Variations in motion will hint at past encounters. The universe remembers, not through narrative, but through pattern. Nothing is truly forgotten. It is only transformed. You might find comfort in the idea that your own experiences leave similar traces. Even when phases of life end, their influence remains, shaping how you move through the world in ways you may not consciously notice. Loss does not mean erasure, it means integration. As this chapter settles into stillness, imagine that invisible center forming far in the future, a quiet gravitational heart. born not from destruction, but from union. Two immense histories becoming one, not in conflict, but in cooperation. In that image, there is a gentle reassurance. Change does not have to mean disappearance. It can mean continuity in a deeper form. The universe shows us that identities can dissolve without being lost, that new forms can arise without denying the old. And in this slow, patient creation of a new galactic center, there is an invitation to trust transformation even when its outcome cannot yet be seen. There is a particular kind of loneliness that does not come from being physically alone. It emerges even in crowded rooms, even in busy lives. It is the feeling of being separate, of existing in isolation within a vast and indifferent world. Many people sense this loneliness most strongly at night, when distractions fade and the mind begins to ask larger questions. Are we alone in what we feel? Are we alone in the universe? Does anything truly touch anything else? Or are we all drifting, disconnected through empty space? The image of galaxies scattered across the cosmos can easily reinforce this feeling. From a distance, they appear like islands of light separated by immense darkness. Each one seems self-contained, remote, unreachable. It is natural to project our own sense of isolation onto this picture, imagining the universe as a cold expanse where everything exists apart from everything else. Yet this image, like many first impressions, hides a deeper truth. The Milky Way does not exist in solitude. Neither does Andromeda. They are members of a small, ancient community known as the local group, a gravitational family that includes dozens of galaxies bound together across millions of light-years. They move in relation to one another, shaped by mutual influence, responding continuously to forces that connect them despite the distances involved. Even in the vastness of space, nothing truly exists alone. This realization gently challenges the idea of absolute separation. Distance in the universe does not mean disconnection. Gravity reaches across emptiness without effort. Light carries information across billions of years. Motion in one region subtly affects motion in another. The cosmos is not a collection of isolated objects, but a network of relationships unfolding slowly over time. The local group can be imagined as an old neighborhood of the universe, not crowded, not noisy, but familiar in its own quiet way. Galaxies here have interacted before. Smaller galaxies have merged into larger ones, leaving behind faint streams of stars as evidence of past encounters. These are not signs of conquest or loss, but of long-term association. The universe builds its structures through togetherness, not through solitude. There is something deeply comforting in this image. It suggests that separation is often an illusion created by scale. From far away, galaxies look alone. From closer understanding, they are participants in shared motion. In much the same way, human lives can feel isolated when viewed narrowly, but reveal deep interconnection when seen in a wider context. The feeling of being alone often arises from the belief that our experiences are unique in their weight, that no one else truly understands what we carry. Yet the universe itself is shaped by shared influence. Nothing moves without affecting something else. Nothing exists without relationship. Even the darkest regions of space are structured by forces that tie them to everything around them. As Andromeda approaches the Milky Way, this hidden connectedness becomes more visible. Their paths are not random. They are guided by the collective gravity of the local group, by the presence of other galaxies that subtly shape their trajectories. The future merger is not an isolated event. It is the outcome of a long history of mutual influence, a story written by community rather than solitude. This perspective can soften the ache of existential loneliness. It does not deny the reality of human isolation, which can be painful and deeply personal, but it places that feeling within a universe that fundamentally operates through connection. Even when we feel alone, we are embedded in systems that support us, influence us, and respond to us, often without our awareness. Imagine a city seen from high above at night. Individual lights glow separately, each one marking a home, a street, a moment of activity. From that distance, the lights seem isolated, but together they form patterns, networks, neighborhoods. Roads connect them, power flows between them. The city never truly sleeps, even when parts of it grow quiet. The universe is like this on its largest scales. What appears as isolation is often participation seen from too far away. The illusion of absolute separation has shaped many human fears. It feeds the idea that we must face existence alone, that meaning is something we must create in a vacuum. The cosmos offers a quieter truth. Meaning emerges from relationship. Structure arises from interaction. Even galaxies, immense and ancient, do not journey through time by themselves. There is also comfort in knowing that the universe has always been this way. From the earliest moments after the first stars ignited, matter has been clustering, gathering, responding to shared forces. Isolation has never been the default state. Togetherness, in one form or another, has always been present. We are inheritors of this connected universe, shaped by it both physically and emotionally. When feelings of loneliness arise, they often bring with them a sense of being forgotten or unseen. The cosmic perspective does not promise attention or recognition in a personal sense, but it does offer something quieter. It reminds us that nothing exists outside the web of influence. Every atom in your body was formed in relation to other atoms, in stars that lived and died together. Even your existence is the result of countless connections spanning deep time. As you sit with this idea, you may notice a subtle easing of the sense of separation. Not because loneliness disappears, but because it is no longer framed as absolute. The universe itself contradicts the notion that anything exists entirely alone. Even silence in space is structured, shaped by fields and forces that link one region to another. The future meeting of galaxies is a visible expression of this truth. It shows that even across millions of light years, relationship persists. Influence accumulates. Paths converge. What seems distant and separate is, in reality, already involved in a shared future. This understanding does not demand optimism. It does not insist that everything feels connected all the time. It simply offers a broader view, one in which separation is never complete and solitude is never final. The universe leaves room for distance, but it does not abandon connection. As this chapter drifts toward quiet, imagine those distant galactic lights once more, not as isolated points, but as members of a vast, slow-moving community, each one carrying its own history, yet shaped by the presence of others. In that image, there is a gentle reassurance. You are not floating alone in an empty expanse. You are part of a universe that has never known true isolation and never will. There is a quiet fear hidden inside the word after. It suggests an ending, a point beyond which something familiar no longer exists. Many people carry this fear without naming it, the fear of what comes after a loss, after a change, after a chapter closes, the fear that once something profound has passed, what remains will be empty, diminished, or cold. When the story of the Milky Way and Andromeda is framed as a final hour, this fear can surface naturally, as if the universe itself were moving toward an ending that mirrors our own anxieties about finitude. But the cosmos does not experience endings in the way human minds do. There is no final curtain, no moment when the universe pauses and declares completion. What we call an ending is, from the universe's perspective, a redistribution. Matter shifts, motion changes direction, patterns dissolve and reform. Nothing disappears into nothingness. It simply becomes part of a different arrangement. After the long encounter between Andromeda and the Milky Way has unfolded, after their shapes have softened and merged into a new form, the universe does not fall silent in despair. Instead, it enters a different kind of quiet, a settled quiet, the kind that follows a long process of adjustment, when forces have found a new balance and no longer need to strain against one another. This silence is not absence, it is continuity at rest. The stars that once belonged clearly to one galaxy or the other will now orbit within a shared gravitational home. Their light will continue to travel outward, crossing space without awareness of the history that shaped their paths. Planets, if they still exist, will circle their stars as they always have. Time will continue its slow unfolding, indifferent to the labels we once used to describe these structures. There is comfort in knowing that nothing essential is lost. The night sky of the far future will still be filled with light. It will still hold depth and mystery. It will still offer a sense of scale that quiets the human mind. What changes is not the presence of wonder, but its configuration. The universe does not exhaust itself, it rearranges. Human fear of endings often comes from imagining a sudden void. We picture silence as emptiness, stillness as lifelessness, but the silence that follows a galactic merger is more like the calm after a long breath, not the absence of air, but a pause between movements. The universe inhales and exhales over billions of years, and between those motions there is space for stability. This perspective can gently reshape how we think about our own endings. The close of a phase in life does not mean erasure. It means redistribution of energy, attention, and meaning. The universe does not cling to old forms out of sentimentality. It allows them to dissolve so that new equilibria can emerge. This process is not cruel. It is neutral, patient, and strangely kind. After the encounter, the newly formed galaxy will drift through the cosmos as it always has, part of larger structures, influenced by distant forces. The local group itself may change, interacting with other galaxy groups over even longer timescales. There is always a larger context, always another layer of relationship. The universe never reaches a point where nothing follows. The idea of a final hour dissolves when viewed through deep time. Hours belong to human clocks, to nervous systems that measure urgency in heartbeats and breaths. The universe measures change in epochs. What feels final to us is merely transitional to the cosmos. This does not make our sense of ending invalid. It simply places it within a broader rhythm. When people fear the end, they often fear being forgotten. The universe offers a quiet response to this fear. Nothing that has existed is truly erased. Every interaction leaves traces. Every structure influences what comes next. Even when forms change beyond recognition, their effects remain woven into the fabric of what follows. Memory in the universe is not narrative, it is structural. As the merged galaxy settles into its long future, subtle patterns will still carry the echoes of its past. Streams of stars will hint at earlier mergers. Variations in motion will reflect ancient gravitational negotiations. The universe remembers not through stories, but through shape and motion. Nothing simply vanishes. There is a deep calm available in accepting that continuity does not require permanence. We do not need things to stay the same forever for them to matter. Their meaning is not measured by duration, but by participation in the larger flow of existence. A star that shines for a few million years contributes just as truly to the universe as one that shines longer. A human life, brief as it is no exception. The silence after the encounter is not empty. It is full of slow processes continuing quietly. Stars aging, orbits stabilizing, light traveling onward. In that silence, there is no drama, no urgency, no demand. The universe rests within itself, content to exist without explanation. This image can be profoundly soothing for an anxious mind. It suggests that even after great change, there is not chaos, but calm, not nothingness, but continuity. The fear that everything collapses into void after transformation is replaced by a gentler truth. Things settle, they find new balance, they go on. You might notice as you sit with this idea a subtle easing in your own thoughts about endings. The end of a day, the end of a relationship, the end of a version of yourself. These moments often feel heavier than they need to be because we imagine them as absolute stops. The universe offers a different metaphor. Endings are pauses in motion, not the cessation of it. The final silence. If you are still listening, then the universe has already slowed you down, not by force, not by instruction, but by scale, by patience, by allowing your thoughts to stretch far beyond the edges of a single lifetime, until they loosen their grip on urgency and begin to rest. This final movement is not another chapter in the story of galaxies. It is a quiet space left intentionally open, a place where nothing new needs to happen. Across everything we have drifted through together, one truth has returned again and again in different forms. The universe does not hurry. It does not rush toward endings, nor does it cling to beginnings. It expands, rearranges, settles, and expands again, following rhythms so slow that anxiety has no place to stand. When we allow ourselves to listen to those rhythms, something inside us begins to match them. The meeting of Andromeda and the Milky Way is often described as a future event, but in reality, it is a reminder of how time truly works. The future is not a sudden arrival. It is a gradual leaning, a quiet convergence already in motion. The present is not a fragile point about to be erased. It is a wide plateau, stable enough to hold entire civilizations, entire lives, entire nights like this. Perhaps what feels most calming about deep time is that it does not ask anything of you. You are not required to prepare for it. You are not responsible for it. The galaxies will meet whether or not you worry. The stars will continue their slow journeys whether or not you understand them. This is not indifference. It is freedom. Many people spend their nights trying to solve tomorrow, next year, the rest of their lives. The mind believes that vigilance is safety, but the universe offers another model. Safety at the deepest level comes from rhythm, from knowing that change arrives slowly, that stability and transformation are not enemies, but partners moving through time together. As the cosmos stretches out beyond thought, the body often responds before the mind does. Breathing deepens, muscles soften, the nervous system recognizes something familiar in this vast patience. After all, your body itself is an ancient structure, built from atoms that have waited billions of years to be here. Nothing about you is rushed. Nothing about you is out of place. The night sky above you tonight may look quiet, even still, but beneath that stillness is motion so slow it feels like peace. Stars orbiting, galaxies drifting, space itself expanding, not urgently but inevitably. When worries arise, they tend to shout. The universe whispers. And for those who listen long enough, the whisper becomes easier to follow than the noise. You may never see the sky change in the ways described. You may never witness the Milky Way soften into a new form. And yet, this story belongs to you anyway. It belongs to anyone who has ever looked up and felt both small and strangely comforted by that smallness. It belongs to anyone who has felt the weight of time and wondered how to carry it. The answer, it seems, is that you do not carry time. Time carries. In a universe this vast, your existence does not need justification. It does not need permanence. It does not need to leave a mark that lasts forever. It only needs to be lived within the brief, luminous interval that is yours. That is enough. It has always been enough. If sleep begins to arrive now, let it come without resistance. Sleep is not an absence of awareness. It is a return to rhythm, a quiet alignment with processes older than thought. Just as galaxies settle into new balances after long encounters, the mind settles when it is no longer asked to be alone. There is no final image to hold on to, no conclusion to reach, only the sense of being held inside something vast, patient, and profoundly non-judgmental. The universe does not ask you to understand it fully. It only invites you to rest within it. And so, as the cosmos continues its long breath, inhale and exhale separated by billions of years, you are free to let go. The stars will keep their distance. The galaxies will keep their slow approach, Time will continue, unbothered, unhurried. In a universe where nothing is rushed, you do not need to be either. There is a moment after every story ends when silence feels unfamiliar. The mind, having followed a thread for so long, waits for the next sentence, the next idea, the next gentle turn. This final movement exists for that moment, not to add information, not to introduce a new theme, but to remain with you in the quiet that follows understanding. In the universe, this quiet is never empty. It is full of continuation. Long after the galaxies have merged, long after names and shapes have softened into memory, the cosmos does not pause to reflect on what has happened. It simply keeps being. This is not indifference, it is steadiness, a calm so complete that it does not need commentary. When human stories end, we often feel a sense of loss. When cosmic stories transition, there is only flow. The night after the encounter is not dramatic. There are no announcements, no echoes of impact. Stars continue their patient aging. Light continues its uninterrupted journeys. Gravity maintains its quiet conversations across distance. The universe does not mark anniversaries. It does not return to important moments. Everything that matters is already embedded in what exists now. This can feel strange to the human mind, which is built to remember, to anticipate, to hold on to meaning through narrative. We ask what comes next because we fear stillness. But the universe shows us a different kind of stillness, a stillness that is not stagnation, but balance, a stillness that holds motion without tension. If you imagine drifting far into the future, beyond the merger, beyond the settling, you do not find emptiness. You find a galaxy at rest within itself, no longer pulled into dramatic reconfiguration, but quietly evolving. Small changes continue, of course. They always do. But nothing demands attention. Nothing insists on being resolved. This is the kind of future that can calm the present. Not a future of final answers, but one of sustained existence. It reminds us that life does not need constant climax to be meaningful. Long stretches of quiet are not wasted time. They are where stability lives. Many people struggle most not with crises, but with the spaces between them. The evenings after important conversations, the days after decisions have been made, the silence after emotions have peaked. These spaces can feel uncomfortable because they lack direction. The universe does not share this discomfort. It thrives in these spaces. After the galaxies meet, there is no urgency to define what they have become. They simply are what they are. Their identity is not something they question. It emerges naturally from their structure, their motion, their relationships. There is no need to label, no need to conclude. This offers a quiet lesson. We do not always need to know what a phase of life means immediately after it ends. We do not need to extract significance on demand. Meaning can arrive later, or not at all, without diminishing the value of what was lived. The universe does not rush reflection, neither do we have to. As time stretches forward, the newly formed galaxy will continue to participate in larger cosmic patterns. Groups interact with clusters. Clusters drift within filaments. Filaments trace the large-scale structure of the universe itself. There is always a wider context, always a larger rhythm holding smaller motions within it. This layered belonging is easy to forget when attention narrows. Anxiety often shrinks perspective, pulling focus tightly around immediate concerns. Deep time does the opposite. It widens awareness until individual worries have room to breathe. They do not disappear. They simply stop filling the entire horizon. The long night after the story is an invitation to remain here, in this widened space, without expectation. You do not need to imagine further futures. You do not need to hold on to the images already given. They can fade naturally, like stars dimming at dawn. What remains is the feeling of scale, the sense of patience, the quiet reassurance that nothing essential is rushed. If your thoughts begin to wander now, let them wander. The universe does not require focus. It accommodates drift. Planets drift, stars drift, galaxies drift. Drift is not a failure of direction, it is how motion happens at its most natural pace. Sleep, if it comes, arrives as another form of drift. Consciousness loosens, not because it is shutting down, but because it is returning to a more ancient rhythm. Long before thoughts had language, before meaning had words, rest existed. Rest is older than. In this final quiet, there is no message to remember, no insight to retain, only the sense of having touched something vast enough to soften urgency. The universe does not solve our problems, it reframes them, placing them inside a scale where they no longer need to shout. The night continues. The cosmos continues. There is nothing you need to do to keep it going. And if, in this long night after the story, your mind finally grows quiet enough to rest, then the universe has done what it has always done best. There is a kind of time that exists after stories, after explanations, after even reflection has gently exhausted itself. It is not measured, it is not directed, it has no narrative responsibility. This is the time that follows when nothing more needs to be understood, only inhabited. In the universe, this time is everywhere. It is the dominant state of existence. Long stretches where nothing announces itself as important, yet everything continues with quiet fidelity. When human minds imagine the far future, they often search for events, for milestones, for moments that justify the passage of years. But the cosmos is not built around moments. It is built around duration. After galaxies merge, after structures settle, after gravity has negotiated its balances, what remains is not emptiness, but continuity without commentary. The universe does not ask what comes next. It simply continues being what it has become. This kind of time can feel unfamiliar to us because it mirrors something we rarely allow ourselves to experience. We fill our days with markers. We divide life into chapters, goals, deadlines, outcomes. Even rest is often framed as preparation for the next effort. But cosmic time has no such urgency. It does not prepare, it does not anticipate, it unfolds. In the long quiet after the galactic encounter, stars do not feel relief, nor do they feel loss. They shine until they do not, and then their material becomes part of something else. There is no anxiety in this process, no resistance, just participation in a rhythm that has always existed. Matter does not cling to form. It accepts transition as its natural state. There is something profoundly gentle about this acceptance. It does not erase individuality, but it does not defend it either. A star does not mourn its eventual transformation. A galaxy does not grieve its old shape. These concepts belong to minds that experience time as limited and personal. The universe experiences time as abundant and shared. When people struggle to rest, it is often because their minds refuse to enter this unnamed time. They search for meaning when none is required. They anticipate threats where none are present. They rehearse futures that are not arriving. The universe offers an alternative state of being, a state where awareness does not need to be productive, where presence is enough. If you imagine drifting forward now, far beyond the events already described, you enter a region of time where nothing dramatic happens for unimaginable spans. Stars continue aging. Some quietly fade. Others ignite from recycled material. Patterns repeat with variation so subtle it feels like stillness. This is not stagnation, it is sustainability. The universe survives not through constant change, but through long periods of stability punctuated by slow transformation. These quiet eras are what allow complexity to endure. They are what allow systems to settle, relationships to deepen, structures to persist. Without them, nothing lasting could exist. Human lives also depend on these quiet intervals, even if we undervalue them. The nights when nothing is decided, the days when no progress is visible, the seasons where growth happens beneath the surface. These are not wasted times. They are foundational. They are when balance is restored. The postlude of the cosmos reminds us that life is not meant to be a continuous arc of significance. It is allowed to flatten, to widen, to become uneventful. In fact, most of existence is uneventful, and this is not a flaw. It is a feature that makes endurance possible. There is no soundtrack to this time, no rising tone, no resolution, just a quiet hum of continuation. Gravity holds, space expands, light travels. None of it asks for attention. None of it requires interpretation. If anxiety returns in this quiet, it is often because the mind mistakes silence for absence. But silence in the universe is full. It contains motion too slow to register as noise. It contains relationships too vast to feel personal, yet too fundamental to be irrelevant. Silence is not emptiness, it is scale. You may notice that as this time stretches, thoughts become less defined. Images lose their edges. The need to follow dissolves. This is not loss of awareness. It is awareness loosening its grip. Just as galaxies relax after long interaction, the mind relaxes when it no longer needs to track change. There is no final understanding waiting here, no insight hidden just beyond reach. The postlude does not reward effort, it receives presence, and presence does not need to accomplish anything. The universe does not congratulate itself for continuing. It does not evaluate its own stability. It simply remains available to whatever emerges next, whenever that may be. This availability is not passive, it is resilient. If you allow yourself to remain in this unnamed time, even briefly, you may sense something unfamiliar yet deeply natural, a state where you are not behind, not ahead, not responsible for what comes next, a state where existing is sufficient. This is not a lesson, it is an environment. The long night stretches on. The cosmos holds its shape without effort, and within this vast, patient continuity, there is room for you to rest without expectation, without narrative, without need. Nothing more is required. Time continues. There comes a point, after enough time has been spent with vast ideas, when even those ideas begin to dissolve. Not because they were wrong or incomplete, but because the mind no longer needs to hold them so tightly. This afterward exists in that space. It is not an extension of explanation, nor a conclusion meant to gather everything into a single thought. It is simply a continuation of stillness, the way the universe itself continues after all the great movements have passed into memory. If you imagine drifting even farther than before, beyond chapters, beyond encounters, beyond the reshaping of galaxies, you enter a region of time that feels almost transparent. Nothing asserts itself as important. Nothing demands interpretation. The universe here is not empty, but it is unoccupied by drama. It is the kind of time that allows everything else to exist. Human minds often struggle with this kind of openness. We are trained to look for purpose, to extract lessons, to assign meaning to every experience. When nothing presents itself as meaningful, we can feel unsettled, as if something is missing. But the cosmos has always existed mostly in this state. The majority of time is not marked by events, but by quiet persistence. Stars do not spend most of their lives being born or dying. They spend it shining steadily, almost anonymously. Galaxies do not spend most of their existence colliding or transforming. They spend it holding their shape, rotating slowly, allowing their contents to age at their own pace. The universe is built not on spectacle, but on endurance. This endurance is not rigid. It is flexible, adaptive, patient. It allows for change without demanding it. It allows for rest without labeling it as stagnation. In this sense, the cosmos offers a model of existence that is deeply at odds with modern human expectations. We are encouraged to optimize, to progress, to constantly become something else. The universe is content to remain what it is for unimaginably long stretches. There is a profound relief available in aligning even briefly with this rhythm. When nothing is required to happen, the nervous system begins to relax. The constant internal monitoring softens. Awareness widens. You may notice that thoughts arise more slowly now, and when they do, they carry less urgency. This is not because something has been resolved, but because nothing needs to be. The quiet continuation beyond meaning does not erase curiosity, it simply removes pressure from it. Questions are allowed to exist without answers. Wonder is allowed to remain open-ended. The universe does not close its mysteries, it sustains them. If you think again of the galaxies, now long merged and settled, they are not striving toward anything. They are not preparing for a next transformation. They are simply existing within a larger flow that will eventually carry them into new configurations. That eventuality is so distant that it does not cast a shadow over the present. The future is not looming, it is resting. This sense of rest can be difficult to accept because it contradicts a deeply ingrained fear that if we stop striving, everything will fall apart. The cosmos offers evidence to the contrary. Stability arises not from constant effort, but from balance. The universe maintains itself not through vigilance, but through consistency. In your own life, there may be moments that feel unremarkable, unproductive, or empty. Evenings where nothing happens, days where no progress is visible, periods where identity feels undefined. These moments are often experienced as failures of direction, but when seen through the lens of deep time, they resemble the dominant state of the universe. They are not mistakes, they are normal. The afterword of this story does not aim to inspire action or insight. It aims to normalize stillness, to suggest that you are not falling behind when nothing changes. You are participating in a rhythm that has supported existence since the beginning. If sleep has not yet arrived, it may come now, gently, without ceremony. If it does not, that is also fine. Wakefulness, when freed from urgency, can be restful too. The universe does not demand unconsciousness, it allows for quiet awareness. You may notice that images of stars and galaxies begin to blur, losing their clarity. This is not forgetting, it is integration. The mind no longer needs sharp images to hold on to the feeling of scale. The feeling remains even as the details fade. There is no final sentence needed here, no closing statement that ties everything together. The universe does not conclude, it continues. And in that continuation, there is room for every state of being, including rest, uncertainty, and silence. If you carry anything forward from this long journey, let it be this subtle permission. Permission to slow down without justification. Permission to exist without explanation. Permission to trust that not all time needs to be filled. The cosmos has never hurried, and it has endured for billions of years. You are allowed to move a little closer to that pace now. Nothing else is required. There is a stage of the night when time seems to lose its shape. Hours no longer feel numbered. Thoughts no longer line up in sequence. The boundary between one moment and the next becomes soft, almost permeable. This chapter lives in that space. It is not meant to advance a story or introduce a new idea. It exists to accompany you while awareness loosens its grip and the universe resumes its quiet, endless patience. By now, the images of galaxies may feel distant, less defined than before. Their outlines blur not because they are gone, but because your mind no longer needs precision. The universe does not insist on clarity. It allows impressions, sensations, and feelings to replace facts when facts are no longer necessary. In this softened state, scale is no longer something to understand. It is something to float within. Far beyond human calendars, long after names have lost relevance, the cosmos continues to hold itself together through balance rather than effort. Gravity does not strain. Space does not resist expansion. Everything moves because movement is its nature, not because it is compelled. This is the rhythm your body begins to remember when it finally releases the need to track time. Night without edges feels different from sleep, though it often leads there. It is a state where awareness remains, but without urgency. You may still hear words, but they do not demand interpretation. They pass through gently, like starlight passing through thin clouds, leaving only a faint impression of warmth and distance. In this state, worries often try one last time to surface. They arrive quietly now, less sharp than before. When they do, they are met by a vastness that does not argue with them or attempt to resolve them. The universe does not debate concerns. It simply outlasts them. Against that endurance, even persistent thoughts begin to soften. There is no correct way to be here. Some nights, the mind drifts easily. Other nights, it resists rest, clinging to familiar patterns of vigilance. The cosmos does not judge either response. Stars shine regardless of whether they are noticed. Galaxies drift whether or not they are imagined. Your presence here is enough, even if rest takes its time. Imagine, if it feels natural, a region of space so distant that even galaxies appear as faint suggestions. In this region, there are no landmarks, no reference points. Direction loses meaning. There is no up or down, no before or after. Only extension, only continuity. This is not emptiness. It is openness on a scale too large to feel threatening. In such a place, nothing needs to be protected. There is nothing to hold on to and nothing to lose. Change still happens, but it happens slowly enough to feel like stillness. This is the environment in which the universe spends most of its existence, not in moments of collision or transformation, but in long, quiet intervals where balance persists. Human nervous systems were not designed for constant alertness. They were shaped in cycles of activity and rest, light and dark, sound and silence. Modern life often disrupts these cycles, leaving the body unsure when it is safe to let go. The cosmos offers a different signal. Its vast, unhurried motion communicates safety without word. As you remain here, you may notice that breathing becomes less deliberate. It finds its own pace. Muscles release without instruction. Thoughts stretch out, leaving more space between them. This is not something you make happen. It is something that happens when nothing is demanded of you. The night without edges does not conclude. It does not lead to a revelation. It simply continues until sleep arrives, or until morning light gradually reshapes awareness again. In this sense, it mirrors the universe itself. There is no final state, only ongoing presence. If you listen closely, not for sound but for absence of strain, you may sense a quiet agreement between your body and the cosmos. Both are allowed to rest. Both are allowed to exist without explanation. Both are part of processes far older than worry. There is nothing to remember from this chapter, nothing to carry forward. Its purpose is fulfilled simply by being here with you, holding the space until you no longer need it. The universe remains awake. You do not have to be. There are hours in the night that seem to exist outside of intention. They do not ask to be understood, solved, or even remembered. They simply unfold, one breath after another, without direction or demand. This interlude belongs to those hours. It does not introduce a new idea, nor does it deepen an old one. It rests alongside you, keeping gentle company while the universe continues its quiet work in the background. By now the sense of time may feel altered. Minutes stretch, thoughts drift. The sharp edges of concern lose their definition. This is not confusion, it is expansion. The mind, when no longer pressured to perform, begins to resemble the universe itself, wide, permissive, and unhurried. In this state, even questions soften. They no longer insist on answers. Far beyond Earth, the cosmos remains active, though nothing about that activity feels urgent. Stars continue their slow fusion, turning hydrogen into light with a steadiness that has lasted billions of years. Galaxies maintain their patient rotations. Space itself continues to expand, not as an event, but as a condition. Everything proceeds without commentary, without expectation. These processes do not need to be followed closely. They are not instructions or lessons. They are simply reminders that existence does not depend on constant attention. The universe does not check whether it is being observed. It does not accelerate when noticed or slow down when ignored. It moves at its own pace, which has always been enough. In the hours that do not ask questions, the mind often revisits familiar concerns, but with less intensity. Thoughts appear like distant lights, visible but no longer blinding. When this happens, there is no need to push them away. The universe does not resist what passes through it. It allows movement without interference. You can allow the same. Imagine a region of space between galaxies, a place where matter is sparse and distances are immense. In these cosmic voids, nothing dramatic happens for unimaginably long periods. And yet, these regions are essential. They give structure to the universe. They create contrast. They provide space for everything else to exist. Absence here is not a failure, it is a function. Human lives also contain voids, though we often treat them with suspicion. Empty evenings, quiet weeks, periods where nothing seems to progress. These times can feel uncomfortable because they resist interpretation. But when viewed through a cosmic lens, they resemble the vast, necessary spaces between galaxies. They are not wasted, they are stabilizing. As awareness drifts further into this interlude, language itself may begin to feel less necessary. Words arrive more slowly now, not because meaning is lost, but because it no longer needs to be reinforced. The feeling of scale remains even as descriptions fade. The sense of being held within something larger does not require constant explanation. The hours that do not ask questions are generous. They allow uncertainty to rest without pressure. They permit thought to wander without destination. They offer a kind of permission rarely found during the day. Permission to exist without agenda. In the universe, most time is like this. The dramatic moments, the collisions, the births and endings, occupy only a small fraction of cosmic history. The rest is made of continuity, of persistence, of quiet balance. This is the environment in which complexity survives. This is where systems stabilize enough to endure. If you notice your body responding now, releasing tension in subtle ways, this is not coincidence. The nervous system recognizes safety and steadiness. It responds to environments that do not demand immediate reaction. The cosmos, with its slow rhythms, communicates that safety wordlessly. There is no need to imagine anything specific at this point. Images can dissolve. Concepts can blur. What remains is a sense of duration without direction, time without narrative. This is not boredom, it is spaciousness. The interlude does not move toward a conclusion. It does not build toward insight. It simply remains available, like a quiet room you can step into whenever the world feels too loud. The universe contains countless such rooms, not as places, but as states of being. As the night continues, you may find yourself hovering between wakefulness and sleep. Thoughts lose coherence. Awareness softens. This threshold is not something to cross deliberately. It opens on its own when resistance fades. The universe does not rush transitions, neither should you. If sleep arrives, it does so as another form of continuity, not as disappearance. Consciousness narrows, but existence does not. The cosmos does not notice the difference. It holds both states equal. And if sleep does not arrive yet, that is also fine. These hours are not meant to be productive. They are meant to exist. The universe exists this way most of the time, without commentary, without climax, without need. Nothing is missing here. Nothing needs to be added. The hours continue, quietly, doing what they have always done. They pass. They remain. They hold you without asking anything in return. There is a depth of night that does not belong to any hour on a clock. It arrives quietly, often unnoticed, when the need to track progress dissolves and awareness becomes wide rather than sharp. In this space, nothing is expected to unfold. Nothing is required to resolve. The universe rests here often, not as an interruption of motion, but as its most natural expression. By now, the idea of galaxies may feel distant, not because they are gone, but because they have done their work. They have stretched your sense of time until urgency no longer fits. They have widened perspective until individual moments no longer press so tightly against one another. What remains is not emptiness, but a calm continuity that does not demand interpretation. The cosmos spends most of its existence in states like this. Long periods where stars burn steadily without drama, where orbits remain stable, where distances remain vast and unchanged. These are not waiting periods, they are not pauses between important events, they are the foundation upon which everything else is possible. Human life, too, depends on such stillness, though it is often overlooked. The nervous system cannot remain in a state of readiness forever. It needs intervals where nothing must be anticipated, nothing must be solved. In those intervals, restoration happens quietly, beneath awareness, just as galaxies slowly settle after long interactions. In this stillness, thoughts may continue to appear, but they carry less weight. They drift through like thin clouds, not blocking the sky, not demanding attention. There is no need to follow them. The universe does not follow its own thoughts. It allows them to arise as motion and fade as equilibrium. Imagine a region of space so balanced that forces cancel one another out perfectly. Nothing accelerates, nothing resists. Everything remains in gentle relationship. This is not stagnation. It is harmony. The universe achieves this state repeatedly, and when it does, it remains there for vast stretches of time. There is a quiet trust embedded in this balance. The cosmos does not worry that if nothing changes, something will be lost. It understands, in its own wordless way, that endurance is not achieved through constant adjustment, but through stability that allows slow evolution to occur when it is ready. As awareness rests here, the distinction between listening and not listening begins to blur. Sound becomes texture rather than information. Silence becomes presence rather than absence. You do not need to focus. Focus dissolves on its own when it is no longer required. This space does not ask for reflection. It does not ask for gratitude. It does not ask for surrender. It simply exists, offering itself as a place where the mind can set down its tools and rest its attention. If anxiety tries to reassert itself here, it often does so faintly, without conviction. In this stillness, fear finds little to hold on to. There is no approaching deadline, no impending outcome, only duration, extending gently in all directions. The universe does not measure worth by activity. It does not evaluate periods of quiet as failures. Most of what has ever existed has existed without being noticed, without being named, without being interpreted. And yet, it has all mattered equally simply by participating in existence. This understanding can soften the internal pressure to always be becoming something else. There is value in simply remaining, in allowing identity to loosen, in existing without narrative. The stillness does not deepen. It does not progress. It remains what it is. And that is enough. If sleep arrives now, it arrives naturally, without crossing a boundary. If it does not, wakefulness here is also restful. There is no wrong state in this space. The universe does not prefer one over the other. Time continues to move, but it no longer feels directional. It spreads rather than advances. In this spreading, there is room for rest to happen without effort. Nothing more is needed. The night holds. The universe holds. And you are allowed to remain exactly as you are, within this wide, patient stillness for as long as it lasts. There is a depth of night that does not belong to any hour on a clock. It arrives quietly, often unnoticed, when the need to track progress dissolves and awareness becomes wide rather than sharp. In this space, nothing is expected to unfold. Nothing is required to resolve. The universe rests here often, not as an interruption of motion, but as its most natural expression. By now, the idea of galaxies may feel distant, not because they are gone, but because they have done their work. They have stretched your sense of time until urgency no longer fits. They have widened perspective until individual moments no longer press so tightly against one another. What remains is not emptiness, but a calm continuity that does not demand interpretation. The cosmos spends most of its existence in states like this, long periods where stars burn steadily without drama, where orbits remain stable, where distances remain vast and unchanged. These are not waiting periods. They are not pauses between important events. They are the foundation upon which everything else is possible. Human life, too, depends on such stillness, though it is often overlooked. The nervous system cannot remain in a state of readiness forever. It needs intervals where nothing must be anticipated, nothing must be solved. In those intervals, restoration happens quietly, beneath awareness, just as galaxies slowly settle after long interaction. In this stillness, thoughts may continue to appear, but they carry less weight. They drift through like thin clouds, not blocking the sky, not demanding attention. There is no need to follow them. The universe does not follow its own thoughts. It allows them to arise as motion and fade as equilibrium. Imagine a region of space so balanced that forces cancel one another out perfectly. Nothing accelerates, nothing resists. Everything remains in gentle relationship. This is not stagnation, it is harmony. The universe achieves this state repeatedly, and when it does, it remains there for vast stretches of time. There is a quiet trust embedded in this balance. The cosmos does not worry that if nothing changes, something will be lost. It understands, in its own wordless way, that endurance is not achieved through constant adjustment, but through stability that allows slow evolution to occur when it is ready. As awareness rests here, the distinction between listening and not listening begins to blur. Sound becomes texture rather than information. Silence becomes presence rather than absence. You do not need to focus. Focus dissolves on its own when it is no longer required. This space does not ask for reflection. It does not ask for gratitude. It does not ask for surrender. It simply exists, offering itself as a place where the mind can set down its tools and rest its attention. If anxiety tries to reassert itself here, it often does so faintly, without conviction. In this stillness, fear finds little to hold on to. There is no approaching deadline, no impending outcome, only duration, extending gently in all directions. The universe does not measure worth by activity. It does not evaluate periods of quiet as failures. Most of what has ever existed has existed without being noticed, without being named, without being interpreted. And yet, it has all mattered equally, simply by participating in existence. This understanding can soften the internal pressure to always be becoming something else. There is value in simply remaining, in allowing identity to loosen, in existing without narrative. The stillness does not deepen. It does not progress. It remains what it is. And that is enough. If sleep arrives now, it arrives naturally, without crossing a boundary. If it does not, wakefulness here is also restful. There is no wrong state in this space. The universe does not prefer one over the other. Time continues to move, but it no longer feels directional. It spreads rather than advances. In this spreading, there is room for rest to happen without effort. Nothing more is needed. The night holds. The universe holds. And you are allowed to remain exactly as you are, within this wide, patient stillness, for as long as it lasts. There is a depth of night that does not belong to any hour on a clock. It arrives quietly, often unnoticed, when the need to track progress dissolves and awareness becomes wide rather than sharp. In this space, nothing is expected to unfold, nothing is required to resolve. The universe rests here often, not as an interruption of motion, but as its most natural expression. By now, the idea of galaxies may feel distant, not because they are gone, but because they have done their work. They have stretched your sense of time until urgency no longer fits. They have widened perspective until individual moments no longer press so tightly against one another. What remains is not emptiness, but a calm continuity that does not demand interpretation. The cosmos spends most of its existence in states like this, long periods where stars burn steadily without drama, where orbits remain stable, where distances remain vast and unchanged. These are not waiting periods. They are not pauses between important events. They are the foundation upon which everything else is possible. Human life, too, depends on such stillness, though it is often overlooked. The nervous system cannot remain in a state of readiness forever. It needs intervals where nothing must be anticipated, nothing must be solved. In those intervals, restoration happens quietly, beneath awareness, just as galaxies slowly settle after long interaction. In this stillness, thoughts may continue to appear, but they carry less weight. They drift through like thin clouds, not blocking the sky, not demanding attention. There is no need to follow them. The universe does not follow its own thoughts. It allows them to arise as motion and fade as equilibrium. Imagine a region of space so balanced that forces cancel one another out perfectly. Nothing accelerates, nothing resists. Everything remains in gentle relationship. This is not stagnation, it is harmony. The universe achieves this state repeatedly, and when it does, it remains there for vast stretches of time. There is a quiet trust embedded in this balance. The cosmos does not worry that if nothing changes, something will be lost. It understands in its own wordless way that endurance is not achieved through constant adjustment, but through stability that allows slow evolution to occur when it is ready. As awareness rests here, the distinction between listening and not listening begins to blur. Sound becomes texture rather than information. Silence becomes presence rather than absence. You do not need to focus. Focus dissolves on its own when it is no longer required. This space does not ask for reflection. It does not ask for gratitude. It does not ask for surrender. It simply exists, offering itself as a place where the mind can set down its tools and rest its attention. If anxiety tries to reassert itself here, it often does so faintly, without conviction. In this stillness, fear finds little to hold on to. There is no approaching deadline, no impending outcome, only duration, extending gently in all directions. The universe does not measure worth by activity. It does not evaluate periods of quiet as failures. Most of what has ever existed has existed without being noticed, without being named, without being interpreted. And yet, it has all mattered equally, simply by participating in existence. This understanding can soften the internal pressure to always be becoming something else. There is value in simply remaining, in allowing identity to loosen, in existing without narrative. The stillness does not deepen, it does not progress, it remains what it is, and that is enough. If sleep arrives now, it arrives naturally, without crossing a boundary. If it does not, wakefulness here is also restful. There is no wrong state in this space. The universe does not prefer one over the other. Time continues to move, but it no longer feels directional. It spreads rather than advances. In this spreading, there is room for rest to happen without effort. Nothing more is needed. The night holds, the universe holds, and you are allowed to remain exactly as you are, within this wide, patient stillness, for as long as it lasts. There is a depth of night that does not belong to any hour on a clock. It arrives quietly, often unnoticed, when the need to track progress dissolves and awareness becomes wide rather than sharp. In this space, nothing is expected to unfold. Nothing is required to resolve. The universe rests here often, not as an interruption of motion, but as its most natural expression. By now, the idea of galaxies may feel distant, not because they are gone, but because they have done their work. They have stretched your sense of time until urgency no longer fits. They have widened perspective until individual moments no longer press so tightly against one another. What remains is not emptiness, but a calm continuity that does not demand interpretation. The cosmos spends most of its existence in states like this, long periods where stars burn steadily without drama, where orbits remain stable, where distances remain vast and unchanged. These are not waiting periods. They are not pauses between important events. They are the foundation upon which everything else is possible. Human life, too, depends on such stillness, though it is often overlooked. The nervous system cannot remain in a state of readiness forever. It needs intervals where nothing must be anticipated, nothing must be solved. In those intervals, restoration happens quietly, beneath awareness, just as galaxies slowly settle after long interaction. In this stillness, thoughts may continue to appear, but they carry less weight. They drift through like thin clouds, not blocking the sky, not demanding attention. There is no need to follow them. The universe does not follow its own thoughts. It allows them to arise as motion and fade as equilibrium. Imagine a region of space so balanced that forces cancel one another out perfectly. Nothing accelerates, nothing resists. Everything remains in gentle relationship. This is not stagnation, it is harmony. The universe achieves this state repeatedly, and when it does, it remains there for vast stretches of time. There is a quiet trust embedded in this balance. The cosmos does not worry that if nothing changes, something will be lost. It understands, in its own wordless way, that endurance is not achieved through constant adjustment, but through stability that allows slow evolution to occur when it is ready. As awareness rests here, the distinction between listening and not listening begins to blur. Sound becomes texture rather than information. Silence becomes presence rather than absence. You do not need to focus. Focus dissolves on its own when it is no longer required. This space does not ask for reflection. It does not ask for gratitude. It does not ask for surrender. It simply exists, offering itself as a place where the mind can set down its tools and rest its attention. If anxiety tries to reassert itself here, it often does so faintly, without conviction. In this stillness, fear finds little to hold on to. There is no approaching deadline, no impending outcome, only duration, extending gently in all directions. The universe does not measure worth by activity. It does not evaluate periods of quiet as failures. Most of what has ever existed has existed without being noticed, without being named, without being interpreted. And yet, it has all mattered equally, simply by participating in existence. This understanding can soften the internal pressure to always be becoming something else. There is value in simply remaining, in allowing identity to loosen, in existing without narrative. The stillness does not deepen, it does not progress, it remains what it is, and that is enough. If sleep arrives now, it arrives naturally, without crossing a boundary. If it does not, wakefulness here is also restful. There is no wrong state in this space. The universe does not prefer one over the other. Time continues to move, but it no longer feels directional. It spreads rather than advances. In this spreading, there is room for rest to happen without effort. Nothing more is needed. The night holds, the universe holds, and you are allowed to remain exactly as you are, within this wide, patient stillness, for as long as it lasts. There is a depth of night that does not belong to any hour on a clock. It arrives quietly, often unnoticed, when the need to track progress dissolves and awareness becomes wide rather than sharp. In this space, nothing is expected to unfold. Nothing is required to resolve. The universe rests here often, not as an interruption of motion, but as its most natural expression. By now, the idea of galaxies may feel distant, not because they are gone, but because they have done their work. They have stretched your sense of time until urgency no longer fits. They have widened perspective until individual moments no longer press so tightly against one another. What remains is not emptiness, but a calm continuity that does not demand interpretation. The cosmos spends most of its existence in states like this. Long periods where stars burn steadily without drama, where orbits remain stable, where distances remain vast and unchanged. These are not waiting periods, they are not pauses between important events, they are the foundation upon which everything else is possible. Human life, too, depends on such stillness, though it is often overlooked. The nervous system cannot remain in a state of readiness forever. It needs intervals where nothing must be anticipated, nothing must be solved. In those intervals, restoration happens quietly, beneath awareness, just as galaxies slowly settle after long interaction. In this stillness, thoughts may continue to appear, but they carry less weight. They drift through like thin clouds, not blocking the sky, not demanding attention. There is no need to follow them. The universe does not follow its own thoughts. It allows them to arise as motion and fade as equilibrium. Imagine a region of space so balanced that forces cancel one another out perfectly. Nothing accelerates, nothing resists, everything remains in gentle relationship. This is not stagnation, it is harmony. The universe achieves this state repeatedly, and when it does, it remains there for vast stretches of time. There is a quiet trust embedded in this balance. The cosmos does not worry that if nothing changes, something will be lost. It understands, in its own wordless way, that endurance is not achieved through constant adjustment, but through stability that allows slow evolution to occur when it is ready. As awareness rests here, the distinction between listening and not listening begins to blur. Sound becomes texture rather than information. Silence becomes presence rather than absence. You do not need to focus. Focus dissolves on its own when it is no longer required. This space does not ask for reflection. It does not ask for gratitude. It does not ask for surrender. It simply exists, offering itself as a place where the mind can set down its tools and rest its attention. If anxiety tries to reassert itself here, it often does so faintly, without conviction. In this stillness, fear finds little to hold on to. There is no approaching deadline, no impending outcome, only duration, extending gently in all directions. The universe does not measure worth by activity. It does not evaluate periods of quiet as failures. Most of what has ever existed has existed without being noticed, without being named, without being interpreted. And yet, it has all mattered equally, simply by participating in existence. This understanding can soften the internal pressure to always be becoming something else. There is value in simply remaining, in allowing identity to loosen, in existing without narrative. The stillness does not deepen, it does not progress, it remains what it is, and that is enough. If sleep arrives now, it arrives naturally, without crossing a boundary. If it does not, wakefulness here is also restful. There is no wrong state in this space. The universe does not prefer one over the other. Time continues to move, but it no longer feels directional. It spreads rather than advances. In this spreading, there is room for rest to happen without effort. Nothing more is needed. The night holds, the universe holds, and you are allowed to remain exactly as you are, within this wide, patient stillness, for as long as it lasts.